So let's talk a little bit. We've got Guy Oliver in the studio with his book, Busted, a women's perspective from a guy's point of view.
Congratulations for a second time.
And what I want to know is the guy meaning men, or is the guy you guy?
Well, I am the quintessential guy in this book because he's really more of a character. He's sort of an exaggerated version of myself.
As you are.
Yes.
And as we've learned in this short time.
Yes, and frankly, I have a really huge, fragile ego, and so I wanted to get my name in the title. I originally had Oprah's name in the title to sell books.
To sell books.
But then I was like, no, I'm much more important than Oprah.
Or selling out, you know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. This book's local? It's a local book?
It's homemade.
It's straight out of Pflugerville.
It's as local as it comes. and all the stories were told about things that happened, around
to
Austin.
A friend of yours that you know.
To me.
Oh, okay. I was trying to save you from that.
It's all about me.
I can see how this is going to go.
My nickname for my wife is Prima Donna. So.
Oh, boy.
That means before Madonna, right?
Pre-Madonna.
I think we grew up at about the same time. Yeah.
Ladies, you're going to have to call in for the game show because I am surrounded by testosterone. So, how did you become a writer?
That's a really interesting question. I don't want to go into all the details because it's a really hard question to answer. I was a very terrible writer in college, but I learned to write by reading the dictionary.
Wow, that's tough.
Yeah.
That's a tough way to go.
Not a lot of plot or character development there.
No. Well, but I was drafting sales proposals. And so it was very technical work where we crunched a lot of numbers and stuff like that, but it had to be communicated clearly. And then I got into technical writing, and then that developed into marketing, and then one day I was...
Technical writing has no pictures.
No.
No diagrams?
Not interested.
And much more difficult to do after drinking some wine or beer.
No, to the contrary, I do my best work in any discipline.
Oh, is that right?
That's
Technical
right.
writing included?
Well, that's what I've convinced myself.
Yeah.
So. I asked my wife about that. But, so one day I was just kind of angry because I kept running into feminists that were kind of angry, and I just decided to write this treatise. I was bored and angry, and I wrote this treatise, and I wrote all the things that I thought would make someone angry if they really were part of that, that movement. And I kept trying to anger women, and they weren't angry. They were going, well, that's a very interesting perspective. That, you're just being honest.
That's disarming. And
I was very disappointed. But then I actually, it became more purposeful. It evolved, and then I showed it to my wife, and I was thinking, well, I couldn't anger these other. I thought she was going to throw my laptop out the window.
I was going to say, didn't you want someplace to sleep that night?
The couch. I was sleeping on the couch.
Lucky man.
Yeah. Then I finally decided to self-publish. I couldn't get an agent to pick it up, and I self-published, and I hired a publicist. It turns out, I'm just give her a plug, Daniel Hartman. She's a great, she knows all about social network and has done a lot of great work for me. But she's a feminist, and she hated my book. She absolutely was livid. she sent it to a friend of hers who's inside the Beltway, who is also a feminist, and the woman could not get through the first chapter, and all but called her a whore. Because she said, I cannot believe you took money from this guy to publish his book. And but what happened was after I got to the end of it, and it had evolved into something with a much higher purpose, my wife was literally in tears when I read her aloud the last chapter, because all of a sudden I had gone from jerk to, this really sensitive guy who's saying, what we need to do is celebrate and embrace each other's differences, and don't ignore them. They're there. It's a bell curve. Not everybody is, on one end or the other, but you see proclivities and tendencies that are different in men and women, and those are things that I think are important to acknowledge, because that makes us whole.
Well, it goes to prove that God has a great sense of humor.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of...
He puts a spender with a saver, and he's like, yeah, go have at it.
Well, there's a lot of acknowledgement of God, and I'm talking about this weird mix of heavy drinking and lustful attitudes when we go into the sports bar. And
Stop talking about what we do on break.
We carry guns and we have all this weird conversation, but at the end of the day, we're all human beings, and we're all here to hopefully leave the world better than we found it. And the way to do that, in my opinion, is to partner with somebody who can make you the best person that you are. And that's really the ultimate point of the book. But it's also very funny, and it's probably the only book that you could categorize as a relationship book that is something a man would read. All of the men that have read this book said they never stopped laughing.
I'm looking forward to it.
It was all smiles from start to finish.
Well, that means we're going to have to take a short break.
I think that's a win.
It's a win.